Welcome, welcome to our webinar today. I'm Katie Kobe-Burt. I'm head of community here at Ladies Who Launch, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. We started as a grassroots movement back in 2013, formalized into a nonprofit in 2019. And we are super passionate about helping women launch and grow sustainable businesses. We like to provide inspiration and education, community building, and funding resources just to help y'all do just that. Today, though, I am so excited to introduce all of you to Elena Miller. Elena is an author, an entrepreneur, a Fortune 500 speaker. She's a coach. She's been a TV host. And I was lucky enough to meet Elena June of last year, actually, at our Ladies Who Lunch event in London. And I've been so impressed by her approach to business. She's built a really strong online presence and personal brand in the mental health and wellness space. And all of this work has enabled her to work with some incredible partners like Six Senses, Snowflake, and Rocco Forte. Also been featured in publications like InStyle, one of my favorite magazines, Bunte, I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, Women's Health, and Jolie. So you have an incredible track record behind you. And again, I am just thrilled that you're going to be here to share your approach with us and so grateful, not just for your brilliance and willingness to share, but for showing up here at 7 o'clock at night, local time for you. So thank you, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful. Like it's nothing makes me happier than inspiring, other women to also go that path and to really dream big and go for their vision. So I'm really, really grateful to be here and speak to every one of you. I launched my business in 2023. So yeah, 2.5 years ago, I was a TV host for 5 years, but I always had this vision of having my own brand. And, there came the time where I was like, okay, enough dreaming, enough, having this thought in your head. Let's actually execute. And so with that kind of came that I actually lost my job. This was right after Corona. So they merged companies, and I figured this was my sign to actually start my business. And I had this business idea since over 10 years, to be honest. Like for me, the whole thing started personal development and wellness when I was 15, when my mom became really depressive, and I started journaling all my thoughts. And so from journaling, I really realized how I'm feeling so much better. And so my idea was always, bring out a journal that really brings in all the aspects that really made you feel better during that really hard time. And with that also came that I was really into personal development, read everything about coaching, did courses, and really knew this is my passion project. Like, I want to do this in my free time. I feel so passionate about it. And so when the time came that I lost my job and I knew I had 6 months left, I was like, now or never. And kind of went all in to start my own business. And so I launched my own journal 2023, so 6 months after I lost my job. So I had like 6 months to kind of start my business. It was like, okay, in 6 months, I won't have any money from my business, from my job. So I actually need to live off my self-employed, my own company. And so I was like, okay, let's give it all because in 6 months, a lot can happen. And so I launched my own journal, which is the Love Me Journal. And from that came speaking engagements, talks, online courses with brands, companies, and also, being featured in many magazines. And I really believe that when we are passionate, when we have this, vision, when there's something we really want to change, make a difference, then whatever we desire is our destiny. And so I made 6 figures in the first year, and want to show you today how you can share your voice in an authentic way to speak your truth and build your brand. So thank you for having
So,
me.
our goal today is to help all of you understand how to talk about your story in a way that feels honest and confident and also supports your business goals. A quick pulse check before we really jump in. In one word, when you think about telling your brand's story, how does that make you feel right now? How does that make you feel? Anxious, excited, confident? Ooh, okay, getting a lot of scared, couple excited, couple anxious. All right. Overwhelmed, proud. Oh, Brittany, I love that.
Love that.
Yeah. Dawn, I feel uncertain a lot about my own personal brand too. All right. Vague.
Vague.
Yep. Comment. So it seems like there's a pretty solid like mix of anxiety and excitement. Elena, like recognizing how everyone's feeling in the chat, a combination of anxious and excited about their brand. How did you feel about your brand and especially at the start of your evolution? What did it take to get you to where you are now?
You know, everyone I speak to, whether that is in one-on-one coaching or people that have started or friends who are also entrepreneurs, including myself, everyone is scared to start small. You're
Mm.
not scared to succeed. You're scared to start small, to being seen. What will Sabrina from third grade think? How will the product actually, what will the feedback be? And I realize so often that really the hesitation of starting, of showing yourself, of, creating that also personal story, authentic story is really about being seen. Because it is scary to show ourselves, because we never know the outcome, right? When we're in a full-time job, it is kind of different because yes, we'll have a presentation here and there. Yet, like there are these moments, but you can count them on one hand. Whereas when you have your own brand, you are putting yourself out there and you are showing yourself vulnerable and you don't know the outcome and you don't know what you're doing because you've never done that before. It's all part of the process. But I really think that, we need to start somewhere for the brand to grow. And the reason I also shared this, photo here, August 2023, I actually didn't want to share it because it's not a professional photograph, I photographed it on the back of a window. You can even see the bad, the little things in the back
Those
because it was
little
just a
things, yeah.
random, yeah, because it was a random wall. I still needed a banner for my website and I didn't have one. And so I was like, okay, like I have the last chance to kind of shoot a nice picture in Sicily. And this was the photo. And I had like three different photos. That was the banner. It obviously doesn't reflect my brand now anymore because now I would have a professional photograph and but in the beginning you just need to show yourself and it doesn't need to be perfect. And I think, starting with imperfection is what keeps people from actually showing themselves. It is part of the process. For you to be seen, for you to grow a brand, you have to start somewhere and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be something for you to actually start the brand.
It's a very simple like analogy, but it reminds me of like when you're a kid and maybe you're learning to walk or like to ride a bike or
For
something.
sure.
It's like you just have to like take a deep breath and go for it. And then
Yeah.
as you do it more and more, you build the confidence, you build the repetition and that sort of muscle, and it becomes easier and easier
Yeah.
over time. I do think the fear stops a lot of people. I know for sure it stops me.
People often think they're lazy. Why can't I just do this? Why can't I just start this? I've wanted to do this since so long. But if you think about all the things you do every single day, I think for most people, it's actually not laziness. It's actually the fear of being seen, failing,
Yeah.
like being vulnerable, putting yourself out there. And I think that, also often comes from our childhood, from being let's be less loud, be quieter. Come on, don't be so big, So we kind of dim ourselves, and then when it's about, we want to launch our brand, we want to share our story. We're allowed to just put it out there, but that's going to be big. That's going to be scary. What are people going to think? What is going to be their feedback? And people will have a feedback.
Okay, a quick little side question then. Was there anything
Yeah.
you did at the start to like temper that or like to create make it feel like a
Mhm.
bit more of like a safe space
Yeah.
for you when you were just getting started? Like what were like the specific things that you did?
So I really kind of honored my fear.
Hmm.
Like really, because the moment you share your vulnerability, what are people going to say? Hey, I'm scared this is going to fail. So I really took the people with me on the process of creating the journal. I said, hey, I just lost my job. I want to start my own company and I'm going to give myself 6 months to actually bring out my journal. And I'm going to take you with me on the way. I don't know how, where, what, when, but I want to share how I'm going to figure it out. And so I really took people into my stories, into the process of creating my own journal with the fears that came with having my own brand, my
Got
personal brand.
Got it.
And I think once we speak them out, once we voice them, once we share them, what are people going to say?
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's
Not
really
much.
hard to judge somebody who's really vulnerable.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, there are definitely some trolls, a lot of trolls on the internet, but for
Yeah.
the most part, like if it's people you know and people in your network, that's why it's so important for all of us, especially as women, to have networks. Folks that are in your network, they want you to succeed, right? And so if you're able to go to them to like ask for help and ask for that support, you're gonna get what you need. Well, you mentioned the S word, you mentioned story. So let's
Yeah. So first of all, really creating a brand in the wellness personal space area, which was something that I experienced so early on, really sharing my story of, hey, this is what I experienced when I was 15. I spent time in psychiatric clinics. I saw things I wish nobody ever sees. And I also realized what it is to hit rock bottom. Not
yeah,
me personally, but seeing it from my mother. And
yeah,
so while I saw those things, I see it as my mission to inspire people to not just be okay with okay, but to want more for their life and
yeah,
to really set a higher standard for themselves. I think whenever we have a personal story, emotion is part of the story. And when we share a story that is emotional, people will feel that energy. And when they feel that your story is really dear to you, means a lot, yeah, moves you, it will move them too. And it will be authentic because it's true to you and what you've experienced. And so I really took people with me on Instagram. I took them along of the journey of, okay, I don't know where to start. How am I going to create a journal? I even asked people, do you have an idea of where I could produce a journal? Like I asked people in my stories, and I had, like 2,000 followers. Do you have any ideas? Do you have a solution? Can you help me with this? I asked people for their help to help me with my Shopify website while I was launching the journal because I had a problem on the Shopify website. So it wasn't my product, it is ours. And I always say, our journal. I never say this is my journal, this is my brand, because I really do believe, I co-created it with everyone who's been on that journey, whether that is, Instagram followers or also just friends and, family. The key to storytelling is for it to be something that matters to you.
yeah, yeah.
And your story, yeah,
No, no. Oh, well, I was just gonna jump in and say, like, I've seen a lot because I feel like storytelling is the word right now. I'm seeing it
yeah.
everywhere online, right? Like I'm seeing it in news headlines, on LinkedIn posts, on Substack articles, like all these different places, right? And it got me really thinking about the difference between storytelling versus like just content. In a way, content is the container, but like what I'm hearing you talking about is that content just kind of communicate something versus storytelling really connects. And like, what is the power behind that emotional connection? Like, what has that done for you and done for your brand?
Well, when people are involved in the process, they will be your customer eventually because they were part of the process, right? So when you create the storytelling, and you integrate people in the process, when you launch the product, people will want to buy it because it is part of, they've been part of it. So I think, nowadays with everything that's going on, AI, which we'll get into further later, it is so important for us to connect with each other. And how do we connect? We connect over stories, over emotions, over really seeing somebody be vulnerable, share, their process, share their difficulties, share their struggles. And then we will want to help, just like Britain, Brittany, right? You'd be surprised who's watching and willing to help, literally. Authenticity really is felt when you really embody it, when this is something you're passionate about, when you really have this vision, then people will feel that energy,
I
even through the screen.
I love that. I love that. Jennifer just messaged in asking a question that I think connects to this with the storytelling, with the authenticity. But what she asks, if your business is already past launch, so you had mentioned about like how you were
Yeah.
able to bring people like along in your brand, right, throughout the whole time. But if you're already past that like launch point, how do you ease into that storytelling and the vulnerability and the emotional connection without it getting weird? Because I think in the past, it's been like a best practice
Mhm.
for businesses to not be that close, right? To not let people in. Like there's almost been
Yeah.
like a bit of a wall. It might be a glass wall, but there's still like
Yeah.
been a bit of a wall up. And so,
Yeah.
how might you recommend businesses who have already been a bit more established, how can they jump into storytelling?
So I think, we can start that conversation any moment. Literally just having a story in your Instagram feed can be you storytelling. So for example, I like to share my day, and I realize that people love to see my day to day. And it's something that isn't super aligned with me because I also like to be present. So it's actually something, I don't want to like record everything, but people love to see how my day goes. So I can start my day off with sharing, hey guys, I have this meeting today, but first of all, let me show you how I start my morning. And then I intertwine my journal into my morning routine, and then I go for a walk, and then I have a meeting. Even, my day to day, which to me seems very boring, can be done in a storytelling perspective by literally taking the people with me through my day. Now, if I just post my journal in the morning, nobody will care. But if I say, good morning, guys, I'm just gonna share my morning routine that I'm just doing, let me take you with me. Drink my hot water with lemon, do my Pilates, reach up my phone to post, I don't know, to answer an email, go for a walk. And then I post my journal, people will be like, okay, cool, that's her morning routine. Okay. So they will actually have a benefit. I think what's really, really important nowadays is what can people, take with them? What can they learn by looking through your content? So storytelling, and obviously my goal is to inspire people to take care of themselves, to love themselves more, to really acknowledge how special they are. So with whatever content I put out, my I thought is always, am I teaching something? Am I inspiring someone? Or also, which is also a part of my brand, am I entertaining someone through a funny reel? But it is always, I want to have a positive impact.
I think that's really smart, and it sounds like you're setting a bit of a framework up for yourself almost. And this feels like something that it's like every brand gets to set those rules for themselves, right? Like you, Elena, decided that like inspiration, education and teaching, and entertainment, like those are your, pillars, so to speak, for lack of a better word. But
Yeah,
for a different type of a brand, I don't know why I have like a skincare studio on my mind this morning, but I do. So it's like if you're like a brick and mortar skincare, you might have a different set of pillars. You might also have education be part of it. Maybe you have like nature or something about the environment, right? Because like environmental pollutants
yeah,
are such like an impact to our skin. At least that's what my esthetician tells me. So at any rate, I think the takeaway there is that you as the brand, you get to decide what are those particular things that I want to focus on, and it
100%.
helps people get to know you. Continuing on in this particular vein, let's jump into how do we know what to share versus like what we hold back? How do people decide what parts of their lives belong on the online and which ones don't? And I actually have a very interesting question from Alina that I'll get to after this.
So, I think this is a process that I'm also actually working through, to be honest. So, I had a series that was called Dating Dienstag, which people absolutely loved because I'm currently single. And so I kind of took people with me on the dating journey. And while it was fun, there came a point where I realized actually, if I do meet somebody, who I'm more interested in, I'm not sure if this format is actually going to benefit getting to know that person more. And so right now, I actually stopped with that series, even though people love the content. I get it, right? Dating is juicy, it's interesting, everyone is kind of in it. But right now it just doesn't feel right for me anymore because right now a priority is to have a private life that where I am able to really create a connection with the person I get to meet without them worrying that, something will be on the on my Instagram channel. And even though I never shared any drama, which I highly recommend you don't do, there was still a part of me that shared some things where I could see that it's intimidating if I met somebody. So I think, things like that can shift and change. Just like you shift and change. You do not need to have it perfect right now. You might have a format that feels perfect and right now and might shift in 8 weeks, and that is perfectly fine. Like protect what's dearest to you, because I do believe that, what we put out there also gets energy from the outside. And if something is really, really important to you, especially like, for example, like this is just a good example because dating is something, people kind of connect with. If you just, yeah, just if you met somebody, I wouldn't put it out there immediately because the energy does kind of come back to you. And even though this is the content that is juicy and you will get likes and you will get feedback and you will get comments, I think that we should be really mindful what feels right and how much do we want to put out there. And I can tell you that if the content is not personal at all in any shape or form, it's going to be really hard to receive comments and interaction with people. So some personality or some personal background or is what people want to see. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a founder, people want you to take them with you in your day to day and not just in the office.
Okay, so a couple things come up. Katrina just asked a particular question, which I think is interesting. She's like, are there any kinds of series or things to stay away from? She had an eye infection at one point and wanted to sort of share about it, but then also the infection like looked bad. But I think this is where with that discernment, you want to think about like your brand and what value you're providing. I could imagine if you work in maybe like the healthcare industry or have like an optometrist or run like an eyeglasses shop, if you have something that has to do with eyes, actually sharing about an eye infection or something in that vein kind of goes along with sort of that narrative that you're like putting out there, right? Because it's, we're human, right? Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. But I think that if you're running a completely different brand, like maybe you're, I don't know, a tattoo shop or some other type, something that's completely unrelated, right? Like maybe you're working in mental health the way Elena does, that's probably not the type of content I would maybe like want to share. So I think there is a bit of discernment, and this is a good opportunity too, where maybe even writing it down, like when you think about your stories and like what you're determining to share, like do you ever write down clearly what sort of like a yes, what sort of borderline versus like no, we're gonna stay away from that? And then do you use those filters at all when you're deciding what you do and don't want to share?
So I think it first comes with really understanding your brand.
Yeah.
What do you stand for? What does your brand, what is the aesthetic side of your brand? How does your brand feel? Like really being aware, okay, what is my brand? Because so for example, something that really, really does well is, body pictures of people not looking great. Why would I take a picture like this, even though I know it might go viral? There comes the part where you need to be really aware. I have a certain aesthetic. I have a certain brand that I want to share. And I think that is more of a feeling than yes and no. Really kind of feeling into is, does this feel right? Or is this something that actually doesn't align with the vision I have for my brand?
Hearing you come back to that authenticity piece where it's like the it's like it's not so much about someone's like particular like body image for instance, but it's like
Yeah,
if whatever it is that you're creating is not actually authentic to who you are and what you would actually do in your real life. So for me, for example, I never wear high heels. I am 5'10". My knees hurt like crazy every time I wear heels. I loathe wearing heels. So for me, it would be incredibly inauthentic if I were to somehow like be all in showing photos of myself like stomping around San Francisco in high heels. It's more, I think, what you're getting at is that authenticity layer.
yeah,
I mean, that's what people are going to connect with, right? Like Kelly made a good
yeah,
point in the chat earlier. People really sniff out the inauthenticity quickly. And what's
yeah,
bad about the whole inauthenticity thing is that our brains will actually flag that as like persuasion, right? We're like, oh, this person
For
is
sure.
trying to sell me something. And immediately our defenses go up. We're on guard. We're going to disengage a little bit, right? And ultimately,
Yeah.
trust is being broken. And
Yeah.
in this day and age, trust is like really, really important to get buyers to make.
100%.
So
100%.
yeah, so that's kind of what I think I heard you saying about that is like, sticking to like identifying like what your brand is about, knowing your values, knowing the things that are authentic and like focusing in that lane.
I do think, imperfection is what people want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I really and I struggle with that myself, to share the imperfections. But that is what people really connect with. What are you struggling with? I'm also, I'm a coach. I give one-on-one coaching. So I don't necessarily want to share what I'm struggling with, but I
Right.
know that me sharing what I'm struggling with actually creates a much stronger tie and more interest in people wanting to know more about my brand because it creates like I share myself vulnerably and
Yeah.
people connect with emotion. So
Yeah.
I think imperfection is a really, really important part of creating connection with and that authentic bond with your clients.
We have a couple of Q&As that have come in on
Yes,
this topic. And Alina, I'm not ignoring your question. I just want to get to it in the right time. Dawn actually brings up an interesting point, very similar to what you're just talking about. She says there's a number of coaching people who are coaching or do have coaching companies on this call. What thoughts do you have on like what types of stories to tell when maybe their work isn't so visible, right? Like it's not a direct product. It's not like like a hairstylist or some sort of a service
yeah,
that you can actually like see the tangible results of the work. What types of stories come up for you for those types of businesses?
clients.
Mm.
Not with the names, obviously, and obviously change it for them to feel comfortable. But I don't know who's read the book. Maybe you should talk to somebody.
Oh, I haven't.
Um,
It's on my
Lori
list.
Gottlieb, highly, highly recommend. Maybe you should talk to somebody from Lori Gottlieb. She's a psychotherapist and shares stories from her clients in the book. And she's an excellent storyteller.
Mhm.
So if you're a coach and you don't want to share your personal story, I totally get it. But then why not share? You've had multiple clients, multiple success stories, ups and downs, which people love to hear. And why not share those with obviously names changed so everyone feels comfortable. But if nobody knows who you're talking about, then that is a great way to do storytelling.
I agree. And there's always ways to anonymize it. I personally am a fan of like when you want to share a client's story, asking for permission, because inevitably, even if
Yeah,
it's anonymized, someone will see that and think, ah, that sounds familiar. So definitely like asking for permission. But there is a way to tell those client stories in
absolutely.
this way that we're talking about that is really connected and not just not like a case study, like
Yeah.
I think those like B2B case studies are, I think we kind of get a little like cringy about them, but
Yeah.
there is a bit more of a way to be able to shift that information into a container that builds more connective to you. So I want to get to Alina's question before we jump into a different topic on this. So I think Alina asks a question that is a little hard and scary to think about, but it's very real, especially in this particular area of time of time that we're in. So Alina says, "Do you ever worry about stalkers? People could show up to my brick and mortar store thinking they quote know me, and it kind of freaks me out." And I do think that that's a very valid question, right? Like the terminology that folks will use to talk about this kind of behavior is what's called parasocial relationships. And it's something that a lot of, like um, influencers, YouTubers, creators that have like millions and millions of audience, right? Like they run into this problem where folks in their audience sort of feels like they know them. And so I'm just wondering, I have a couple thoughts on it, but Ellen, I'd love to hear if is there anything top of mind for you as it relates to, especially as women, how we keep ourselves a bit more protected.
I haven't been worried about stalkers, but I also feel like I might like I have 15K followers, so maybe if I had like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, I it would grow the worry. Right now, I'm not. I do not post in real time.
Mm.
I post a bit delayed. And also I don't think my day-to-day is the same every single day. It is something to worry about, but it's also a mechanism to keep you from actually sharing your story. Like if you've actually never had a problem, if you've never known anyone who has had a problem, it's kind of a way to get in your head and self-sabotage, I think.
Yeah, I think that's valid. A couple of other really practical tips I would offer. If you have concerned about this, and everyone has different lived experiences,
Yeah.
location features, don't use,
Hmm.
right? Like, don't tag that location of where you're at. I think Elena's tip about not posting in real time is super important. Being mindful too, depending on the platform that they're using. Sometimes the platforms will make changes, and I'm thinking in particular, I feel like it was like 6 months ago, Instagram made a pretty big change to its location feature, where now there was almost like a map view of things available.
Hmm.
So regularly going in and reviewing your privacy settings, make sure that your things are not showing up on a map in particular. If you are a brick and mortar location, business addresses, it's that's always going to be a thing, but it's also always been a thing, right? Like
Yeah.
long before the internet, we had, phone books and address books where this sort of stuff was printed, newspapers where this was printed. And if someone
Yeah.
didn't like the service that you were offering, they could show up at your counter and, have words. And so it is similar in that sense. Unfortunately, a few bad apples can ruin things, but I think Elena makes a really good point of to being mindful of the risk, but taking those steps to minimize your risk, and then don't let it fear like, scare you into not actually going after what it is you truly want.
Because if you have that vision for yourself, and then not posting because of this, or I think there's so many reasons of not to show ourselves on Instagram that once we get lost, it's really difficult to kind of be like, oh, like let's share my story when you actually have that desire to share your story. Because you will be able to write down 20 things of why you shouldn't show yourself, and you will also be able to write down 20 reasons why you should share why you should share your story. And I believe that if you have a desire to share your story, to have your own business, to, create a big brand, there's a reason for your desire, and that should be for you to go after it, to
Yeah.
not let it linger in your head.
And also, I think being realistic, about your business. Some businesses are meant to stay more inherently local. And if that is your goal, that's fine. I grew up in a very small town, and my mom is a local business owner. And because it was a small town, I mean, I'm talking like 8,000 people, it wasn't big, but because of her business, what she did, and the fact that the town was so small, she was just sort of inherently known by everyone regardless. And people would stop her in the grocery store or stop her on the street. And this was like long before, the internet and like social
Mhm.
platforms existed, right? So it's always going to be some sort of a risk, but I think with anything, we just have to work on managing our risk. To recap about sharing and holding back, protecting what's dearest to you, being mindful of the drama, getting clear on your brand values, and really before you start posting, kind of articulating what are the things that feel okay for me versus these are the things I'm going to stay away from. Some people, for instance, are very, very particular about not sharing about their children online. And I think that that is a very, very valid boundary to have and totally okay. Versus some people share a lot. Right. Let's move on to some of the tools because I saw a couple comments about just kind of almost like the nuts and bolts of creating the story. So I want to get into everyone's favorite topic, which is what is the right way and how to use AI. I'll start with a quick question. I saw this on LinkedIn last week and it made me laugh, but have to ask, is AI going to replace storytelling?
Nothing will replace the human connection
Hmm.
ever.
Mm.
I think we've spoken about robots like a couple of years ago, and it's so interesting because I actually have a couple of friends who work in one of the top robot companies, and it was so funny to hear their experience because I thought robots like are like they're gonna take over tomorrow.
Mhm.
And to hear how they're literally not able to do a lot of the basics yet, and how we have this image of robots because we've been hearing about them for how long? And yet she was like, I had no idea that they are this far in the beginning or behind. I thought they're literally like fully capable, you tell them what to do and they're able to execute, not the case. And that is just a bit of a like nothing will take over the human connection. Like tomorrow, robots won't take over and, take over your job. Like, yes, technology is far, but it's also not at the point where, yeah, emotion connection will ever. That's why people want to feel more connected than ever
Yeah.
because of all the AI, because of everything that is automized.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's actually why storytelling is becoming such a big, buzzword, so to speak, right now, is
Yeah.
because everyone is really leaning to that in absence of feeling all the whatever you want to call it, anti-connection, going online and seeing everything that's very clearly not written by a human. But I do think with all that being said, like these different AI tools, they're exactly that. They're tools. They can actually help us get better. If someone here in the audience wants to use AI without like losing their voice, where should these types of tools enter the process? And like, where should it absolutely just like not be there?
So I love to use AI. I write down newsletters and then I write down correct it, optimize it for newsletter. But my idea of how the newsletter is structured, what I write into the newsletter, what my story is, all those things are first written by me. It's kind of like I sometimes voice note it. I'm like, da, 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 like I talk it out, I speak it, and then I write, optimize it for a newsletter format. And then I still optimize it.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
never comes out and I copy paste it and just use it. I
Yeah.
will then go over it again, make it my voice, change words that I would not use, change emojis I wouldn't use, really kind of, yeah, correct it. So
Yeah.
I do that with newsletters, I do that with captions, I do that with LinkedIn, yeah, with LinkedIn posts that I share. I do that with emails. So that is kind of my process. I never create an image that I would use on my website unless it's for my vision board. I don't, yeah, I don't use a text that I wouldn't change before using it. So
Yeah.
it kind of is, I give it the idea, I then, optimize it, I then change it, and then maybe I'll put on my website, or maybe I'll go through two more processes of changing, optimizing.
So I'm hearing you call out a couple of different use cases, and
Yeah,
one of them, Sandra, actually just said AI becomes the editor, and it is exactly that. You can
for sure.
use the tool. You start with what you have written down,
For
and
sure.
then you go into AI and you say, make this clearer without adding emotion, or you say,
Yeah.
shorten this but keep my tone the same.
Yes, exactly.
Remove the jargon, not my person,
Yeah.
things like that, right? So that's
Yeah.
using AI as an editor. And
Yes.
then the second thing I heard you say, which was really interesting, was using AI to translate to different like contexts. So for
Yeah.
instance, turn this story into a 5 sentence Instagram caption, right?
Yeah.
Or adapt this story, for instance, into something that works for like a sales page. So the idea is
Yeah.
that the content, like what you have written, stays the same, but you're using AI to just adapt it
Yeah.
into a different container.
I really believe that we should use AI to really kind of optimize, everything that we have, but it is not a tool for us not to work. And I think, I mean, everyone kind of knows that it's your story is what does the telling. Then for it to be optimized, then for you not to kind of have to correct grammar, that is perfect. Like that is amazing. But I always think it's important for us to protect our voice, for
Yep.
us, to really kind of go over it and to really only use words that you would use and not kind of share, because people feel that.
I completely agree. They feel it and it's very obvious. Another way I've seen people use AI that is really interesting is they use AI as a mirror to help, like when you say like, okay, I have like a big voice note, right? You could actually take that voice note and put it into AI and say, here's a messy explanation of this thing that I'm doing. What themes do you see? What values show up for me? What should I focus on? Like you can use it to challenge your thinking,
100%.
but what you don't ever want is to go in and say, write XYZ thing for me, right? Like you don't want it
Yeah.
to invent any pain points. You don't want it to heighten any trauma ever. You don't want to create vulnerability. You don't want it to make up facts. That's also something
Yeah.
that it likes to do. So it's like there have to be those guardrails in place, but once you set the guardrails and you get it to really refine and understand sort of your tone, I think it can be a very valuable tool for helping us get to where we need to go. Ultimately, it is the tool for you, right? Just like anything else is a tool.
Oh, use the tools that you were given.
Yeah,
Don't try to not do it because somebody else will do it and will be more efficient, and will kind of use the advantage they have. So definitely use what is given to you and use it to your benefit.
yeah.
Time is money, so be efficient with your time, and AI is an excellent tool for you to be more efficient than ever.
I completely agree. It's helped me quite a bit. And I one of these days I feel like I want to put together like recommended, like prompts or use cases for folks, but
Yeah.
we're not there yet. As we're getting close to the end, Elena, so again, grateful for all of your time here. I'm wondering if you're able to share some practical takeaways for folks. Like, I love the tactics. I'm like, give me the checklist. What are the things that I'm going to do this week? But what are the different things? Maybe like how can folks test some of their storytelling skills in a new way that feels very like low risk?
So, I mean, I think a great way to use it is on Instagram. You'll get the feedback straight away. You'll see it in your engagement, in your following, in your comments, in your reactions. Like, just give it a try for a week. Just by everything that you share, make it a storytelling kind of, thing. Or just think of everything that you share. What are people able to take away? Is it just you posting things that look good and put you kind of, looking fancy, or is it something where people actually can learn something? So slides, 5 tips on how to make 2026 your best year. Just as an example, if you have a coaching practice,
Right.
instead of, oh, here are some pictures from my vacation, for example. That's cool, but why would people be really interested in that? They want to learn, they want to be inspired, they want to either be entertained. Like there are different ways, and think about how are you actually bringing value to your customers? Are you entertaining them? Are you inspiring them? Are you teaching them something? What are they getting when they come into your profile, Instagram profile, newsletter, etc.? So I think once we really realize, okay, this is what I'm sharing and this is what my customers are getting, that's when we can actually create content that really gives value.
Hmm.
And by the way, looking through somebody's Instagram and laughing, that is, I'm getting humor. I'm getting positive endorphins, or looking through somebody's Instagram and seeing a super aesthetic Instagram, that is giving me inspiration. Like, so it doesn't always just need to be, learnings or something. Like, but there are very few people that I think I follow where I'm not getting anything for long term. Because if I'm not getting anything, I'm gonna unfollow. So be sure that you are giving your customers something worthwhile so they will check out your Instagram newsletter again and again and again.
We absolutely live in the attention economy. We have been
Yes.
for a while, but more than ever, we're in the attention economy. And if people are not getting value from you in what
Yeah.
they're consuming, then they're going to opt out because there's so many there's so
For
many other
sure.
options. And I think that actually underscores all the way back why storytelling and authenticity is so important, is
Yeah,
because that emotional connection that someone has with you and your brand is going to be far stronger than a more
yeah,
transactional connection that they have, right? Like
for
think
sure.
think of the difference of between, I help busy women manage stress with coaching, right? Like that feels like pretty transactional. There's a lot of people out there that help busy women manage stress.
Yeah,
But if you approach it from the standpoint of, I burned out because I was juggling work and caregiving, and so I built a coaching practice for people who don't have, time for fluffy advice or whatever, like it creates a stronger bond by just going that level deeper than again, and keeping it more transactional, I guess.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that, you should really take a moment to think about. Then what I really love to do and love to do again and again, what are the 10 problems that I'm solving?
Mm.
Making a list of the 10 things that you are solving with your business. And once you have those 10 things, that is also how you can create content so much easier, right? Because then you can use the pain points to find the solution for your clients.
Yep, definitely. Definitely.
And then, as simple as it seems, showing yourself. Because I see in the chat that that's a big, big topic. Like maybe being scared of failing and doing it anywhere. Like share that you are scared of failing. Share that you are scared of showing yourself. Like share exactly that. That's what people will relate to because so many people are scared of showing themselves. So when you're a business owner, you're like, "Hey, I'm just trying it out. I'm gonna start showing myself. This is so scary. I don't know where to start, but I'm gonna start with a story by talking into the Instagram story. I'm learning. Please be kind to me." People will connect with you because so many people fear that, they will be judged or they will be seen or all of that. So make that part of your story.
Yeah, I agree. There's a couple of other notes. Oh my gosh, Karen, she just left a comment. I'm afraid of
Yeah.
success. And like, I feel
Yeah.
that. Oh, I feel like we could do a whole like 3 hour workshop.
Yeah. Oh my God, Karen, if you're super successful, maybe you'll have to pay for your whole family. That's scary.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's terrifying. But I think that is so real, right? Like
Yeah,
there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of limiting beliefs that systemically I think have been passed down onto women that we
for
have
sure.
we have to work through. But to your point on just pushing yourself, something I've noticed is when you post something on Instagram, not everybody who follows you is going to see it. In fact, a
Yeah.
very small percentage of people who follow
Yeah.
you are going to see it. And so that in a way also makes it a great testing bed because I don't have to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, 10,000 people are going to see this. I can look at it and be like, maybe 100 people will, right? Or instead
Yeah.
of, oh, all my 100 followers are going to see it. No, probably like 15, maybe 20 will, right? And so that
Yeah.
can kind of help hopefully like tone down the anxiety a little bit. There's also a lot of ways if you're truly fearful
I
about
actually think that heightens the anxiety.
really what the
Yeah.
smaller group. Oh,
Yeah, because the less people see it, the more you're embarrassed for doing it because only 5 people see it. What will they think? I'm an influencer now. So I actually think that the bigger your following is, the less bothered you are by who sees it, and the smaller it is, it's so much harder to start off because who are you trying to be?
yeah.
Because we need to start somewhere,
Right.
which is the whole backstory of if I show myself, people are going to think I'm going to pretend to be an influencer and I only have 100 followers. But that is part of the process of starting.
Yeah.
So I actually think, that we just need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, kind of.
Yeah, a lot easier said than done, but that's why it's
Yeah, for
practice,
sure.
right? One step in front of another.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Well, we are right up at the top of the hour. Elena, thank you so much for your time. Elena is here on Instagram and LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with her, check out what she's doing, see what, see her experiments in real time, try it out for your own business, try it out for your own brand. Thank you all so much for being here, for spending your time. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone joining. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Have a great day, y'all.